we've got quite a bit under our belts now in regard to how to play the piano, one hand, 10 fingers, um, our major scale formula, the circle of fifths being the map of music, or at least the map of how we can traverse the terrain of the musical world landscape with the circle of fifths. Long way of explaining that. And also the circle of fourths, which is totally cool. Then we learned about our harmony a little bit deeper. Trust me, we can go even deeper, and I'm sure that there are people that can go way deeper than I can. It is really cool, and it's super nerdy, and it's super awesome and fun, and thank God for it. But now, what I'd like to do is actually take some of those harmonies that we learned and combine them together so that we can get what are called triads. So if we're staying in the world of C, C major, and we're trying to find our chords for that given key, and there's a little bit of the chicken before the egg kind of thing here. Is it the melody or the scales that come first, or is it the chords themselves, and how do we parse that? I would argue that it's the melody first because God spoke and then we're here. But also, I don't know. However you can think about that, that's helpful to you, is what is very, very important here. Now, assuming the Christian worldview here and that the future could be like the past because God is in control of everything, especially music, and he's speaking it right now, and everything that's around us. Just check out, I believe it's Psalm 33, yeah, and other works within the scriptures. It's really cool that this is a spoken reality. God is singing, and so we're here. We get to enjoy sounds, but sound is also making what is material metaphysically, what is real. But anyway, hard digression. Let's get into it. So if I take in the key of C the major third and I add it to a perfect fifth, in this case being C and E and C and G, I put those together and I get what is called a major triad. Now that's super cool. And if you're thinking already and you're like, oh, well, if that's the case, if a major triad is just C, E, and G, a C major triad, then I could take notes and put them in different orders. So I could take my C, take my G, and I could put my E up top. And you would be correct. Now, that is really cool, and thank God for it, but what we're trying to focus on right now is not what we can do with it creatively, but just how it works functionally as a tool. So, our basic triads, we have four. As far as Western music is concerned, the music that we consume via Spotify, if you listen to the radio, your own music, all that kind of stuff, in and over against world music. There are different systems of sound, and I just want you to be aware of it again because I talked briefly about it before, just so that you don't think this is the end-all be-all. This is just Western music. And if you are super nerdy like me and you want to go a little bit deeper into that, is check out microtonal music. That's a whole nother world that I have not even messed around with too much. But there is Eastern music, where Eastern music, for instance, will take two notes that we have in Western music, and there will be four different notes within those two. As far as I remember and I understand. Kind of if you think of Eastern music being more vocal, all those little increments in between. And I think microtonal music actually goes a little bit farther into that, obviously, but that's based off of what I know. In regard to Western music, this is how it's going to roll for us, those four different chords. But again, I want you to be aware that there are different systems of music, and thank God for them. So let's go into our different triads. We have a major triad, We have minor triads. We have augmented triads, one of my favorites, and we have diminished triads. And what I'd like to do is go into each and explain like how we get them, and at least how I like to think about these triads and how they work. So if we had a 4-year-old's drawing of like a house, you know, you've got like one wall here just being a line, another wall here, you've got a roof, you know, either going to be flat or some type of triangle. That's going to tell us what kind of house it is. Now, I like to think about any of our triads. One of the notes that we start with, the root, which we assume in being able to do this, figuring out triads, unless we're talking about rootless voicings, but right now we're just, you know, keeping this very simple. So if I start with my wall on this 4-year-old drawing, very 2D, then if I put a perfect fifth, that's going to be another wall that's exactly the same. Just like this, as both of them are going to support this 2D 4-year-old drawing. And they're the same, right? Or at least one's on the left, one's on the right, but both of them are in line. Then when we add a third, in this case a major third, that's going to be the type of roof we have over our heads, or over the page. So we have this major third, and so we'll just call it the, you know, triangle roof, just because that's cool. And that's going to be our happy house. So major third, perfect fifth, major triad. Okay? So what if we change the roof? We still have the root, in this case C, and then the perfect fifth, in this case G, and we change the roof. Instead of being a major third, now we're going to flat that third, and we'll have a minor triad and a flat roof. Now, does that mean that flat roofs are sad houses? No, especially with this 4-year-old you know, rendering that I hope that you're imagining. It's not that it's sad, just for the metaphor, because I like to take them really far. But anyway, hope that you're still following with that metaphor, even though it's silly. So we've had our happy house, our sad house, or we could just call it a moody house, you know, whatever helps. And that's all by changing the third. The root has stayed the same, the fifth has stayed the same. We haven't messed around with it. That's our first way of altering our changes of our 4-year-old house. So the next thing is, okay, well, what if one of the walls moves, right? And let's say that in this drawing that this 4-year-old most graciously did, that there were neighbors, and there were neighbor houses. So we had a middle house, that's our, you know, focus house. Then we had a leftward house, that's one neighbor. And then we had a rightward house. So I want you to think about the fifth. If we move the fifth from being a perfect fifth, and we flatten the fifth, now we kind of have like a shaky kind of relationship between the root and the fifth. Almost like the neighbor's wall was like collapsing into our wall, if you will, or that our wall has something wrong with it and it's actually like falling over on the rightward side. So there's that kind of change that we can have. Perfect fifth, flat five, being like, whoa, okay, we're losing our wall, or something wrong is happening, where it's caving in. Or we could actually go into confusing our wall with our neighbor's wall. Now we're not sure if we're still a part of our house or our neighbor's. This is when we minor the 5 or we raise it. Now, if this metaphor is just super outlandish and you're like, okay, come on, give me something else, that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So there is a biblical principle when we're trying to figure out what is true that we've actually adopted by the grace of God through our judicial system. Lord willing, it's still being utilized, but that's a whole nother conversation. But something cannot be established as true unless there are two or more independent eyewitness testimonies of the same thing, and then those eyewitness testimonies being determined as credible. So to water all of that jargon down, if that was like a little bit too heady, we need this testimony and this testimony saying the same thing. If those two things are saying the same thing, then we can be absolutely sure that it is the case within this musical metaphor, and also abroad outside of it. But to keep it within the confines of this context, if this testimony is saying, yes, this is true, and then this testimony over here is saying, yes, this is true, well, what if one of them actually goes against the other, and they change their mind, or they say something that contradicts what the first testimony actually was, what the person said? Well, then this will happen, right? This is the case. No, it is not. Or, this is the case. No, it isn't, but it might be. Something silly like that. Whatever the case may be, this is agreement. This is disagreement. Both ways here. Either minoring the 5 or raising the 5. Now you might be thinking, why is this important? This is important when we're trying to discover keys or chords within different keys on our own. So when we're playing a, say, flat 5, is this 5th can actually belong to another chord. It can belong to a higher chord or a lower chord. And the same could be said about a 4th. If that 4th is raised, there's this kind of tension or this movement going from one chord to the next. Now, that is a lot of information about 5ths, but I really want you to start understanding this so that it can make sense with the other harmonies that we're about to get into. So, we've just gone over our major harmony, our happy house, our sad house, if you will, and now we're getting into a happy house that is also like leaning into your neighbor's house, where you're not so sure if it is your home, right? Because we have that 5th going off into another direction. It's actually pulling us into another direction. One reason I really like augmented chords is because they have this kind of power to them. There's an ambiguity to them. You're not really sure what they're doing, except that they're moving you or causing some kind of mystery or mysterious feelings or thoughts images to come up. They're very, very cool because they're moving the 5th, because it's part of a different chord. Now notice when I played that major triad, it was back in harmony within itself. I move it away, not so much. So that's the augmented sound, and remember its uses are many, but one of the main uses for augmented chords are to kind of give more interest to the chord, to cause like there to be a feeling of mystery, mystique, ghastliness, or like I was saying earlier, to bring movement to another chord. So that's our augmented, which is a major third plus a raised 5th, or an augmented 5th. G sharp in this case. So cool. Let's move on to our diminished chords. Now, our diminished chords are just like the word suggests. Diminished is to lose or to go away from. If you think about like sand in an hourglass, diminishing from the top, being full, and then coming down to the bottom. We are taking, starting from a major triad, and this is usually the standard that we can reference whenever we're trying to figure this stuff out. So we have that major triad, and then we flatten the third. So we get that sad house again. And we also flatten the fifth. And those are the two notes that are going to be diminishing, right? Now, what's cool about these kind of chords as well is these chords, they can have two notes that belong to another key or another chord. In this case, let's say B flat major, or my bad, B major. And notice, like seamlessly, I was able to go from the key of B to C. It didn't sound the greatest, but we did move because of that diminished chord quality and the relationship of the notes of the diminished, or I should say C diminished chord, then just moving the root a little bit so I can get that B. And that gives us a B major chord. We haven't gone into that too much, but just know that that is a B major chord, a B, D sharp, and F sharp. And when we're playing our diminished C chord, we have C, E flat, G flat. Or you can think about it as C, D sharp, and then F sharp. Now, those are all of our different triads, at least our basic four-note, or our basic three-note triads, and four of them being the major triad, minor triad, augmented triad, and diminished triad. I hope this has been helpful for you. In passing, if I didn't mention what a use of the diminished chord is the diminished chord can give a lot of tension. It also can be used as like a underground tunnel from diminished chord to diminished chord so that you can change keys. It is another one of my favorite chords. It is tension that desires resolution. And it is one of those things that I'm sure that you've heard in like cartoons and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, just wanted to add that before I go. God bless you, and Lord willing, I will see you in the next lesson where we actually start to use this and develop our scale tone triads. But thank you so much, and God bless you.